Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here for CCST's Expert Briefing on training tomorrow's cybersecurity workforce. My name is Brie, Lindsey, and I'm the Director of Science Services at the California Council on Science and Technology. I'd like to open our briefing today by acknowledging that we are calling in from different locations in what we now call the state of California, which is home to many Indigenous communities that have stewarded this land since time immemorial. Today, I'll introduce CCST and our Disaster Resilience Initiative before handing it over to our moderator and expert panelists. The California Council on Science and Technology is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization established 35 years ago at the request of the California State Legislature. CCST was created to provide science and technology advice from the wealth of outstanding academic and research institutions in our state directly to policymakers. California is fortunate to have such an incredible network of expertise, and our job at CCST is to help amplify and translate the expertise in this network into actionable advice for policymakers. We do this through a number of mechanisms, including briefings like the one you're attending today, workshops, peer-reviewed reports, and through CCST's Science Fellows program, where we place PhD scientists and engineers for a year of government service and leadership training in both legislative and executive branch offices. As part of our mission, CCST is advancing work related to our Disaster Resilience Initiative to help the state better prepare for and respond to converging and cascading disasters that affect public health, our economy, our environment. Disasters like climate change, the COVID-19 pandemic, cybersecurity threats against critical infrastructure are radically disrupting the ways in which Californians live and work. And while these disruptions are often destructive and painful, they can also provide us with opportunities to re-examine and redesign our systems to be more resilient and sustainable. Through our Disaster Resilience Initiative, we seek to deliver science and technology advice to reduce harm and improve the lives of all Californians. Today, we're focusing on California's resilient workforce with a panel of experts to discuss what it takes to train the cybersecurity workforce of the future. I would like now to introduce our moderator, John Hanafee, Chief of the Advisory Services Program of the Office of Information Security at the California Department of Technology. John, thanks so much for moderating our discussion today.
Well, thank you, Brie, and welcome to our audience. And it is a pleasure to be here this afternoon to discuss training tomorrow's cybersecurity workforce. I'm John Hanafee. I'm Chief of the Advisory Services Program within the California Office of Information Security. Today, we'll be exploring some issues involved in the development of the next generation of cyber workers and some approaches to maintaining California's leadership in building a resilient and robust workforce. With over 72,000 vacancies and a 28% predicted job growth over the next 3 years, the demand for cybersecurity professionals far exceeds the supply of qualified people to take on protecting our information security and assets. Other factors play a role in this. As mentioned, the COVID-19 pandemic introduced a huge shift in our working environments and exposed existing and introduced some new security vulnerabilities and threats to our organizations, institutions, companies, government, and as well as our individuals and families. The increased complexity of systems, the greater resilience on technology, the collection and data storage issues, along with the growing sophistication of threat actors and the rise of nation-state actors as players, also highlights the need for greater emphasis on producing the next generation of cyber defenders. In our modern data-driven community with increased cyber risks, a skilled and qualified cybersecurity workforce is necessary to fill those roles in the jobs in the sector. Coordinated efforts in education, training, and workforce development are needed to support the development of cybersecurity specialists and professionals to meet the ever-increasing demand for cybersecurity workforce. Development and implementation of cybersecurity programs between all levels of our education system, that includes K-12, community colleges, universities, trade schools, are crucial for students to seamlessly transition from one level to the next. And as you will hear today, early childhood learning programs that include cyber information systems set up for students for success once graduating high school. Our 4 panelists today are going to lead us in a discussion of how to prepare for the next generation of cybersecurity workers. They are deeply rooted in developing curriculum for their students and we are thrilled to have them here today to share their experiences and thoughts in the future. And I would like to take a moment to have each one of them introduce themselves. So we'll start with Miss Donna Woods from the Moreno Valley Unified School District.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, John. It is a pleasure to be here with all of you this afternoon. I am honored to serve the Moreno Valley Unified School District through the Riverside County Office of Education, and proud to share, because of our workforce industry partners, our visionary leadership in our district, we are the first in the state and in the nation to have developed and built a 7,700 square foot cyber innovation center right on a high school campus, serving teachers, students, and our community. So it's an honor to be here with all of you today. Thank you.
And next we can move to Professor Markus Geissler of Cosumnes River.
Yes, good afternoon. Dr. Markus Geissler. I'm a professor of computer information science at Cosumnes River College. I also serve as the chair of the CID Faculty Discipline Review Group for Information Technology and Information Systems for the academic senates of the California Community Colleges and the California State Universities. I also serve as the chair of the ACM, or the Association for Computing Machineries, Committee for Computing Education and Community Colleges. And as such, we create curricular guidance for two-year programs. It's good to be here.
Thank you. And Kayvan Chinichian, Cal Poly Cyber Institute.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you all, and thank you to John and my colleagues for joining this conversation. My name is Kayvan Chinichian. I'm Senior Director of Development at the California Cybersecurity Institute at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. The CCI, as we like to call it, leads the state and national initiative to address cybersecurity challenges, specifically around workforce development. We do this in three various buckets of activity: train, accelerate, and empower. We train to reskill, upskill, and build tech literacy across the state of California and communities across the country. We accelerate unique opportunities to advance the Cal Poly Learn by Doing pedagogy for our students and faculty. And we finally empower early education opportunities to build a pipeline for future students interested in careers in tech. Thank you.
And finally, Professor Tony Coulson from CSU San Bernardino.
Hi, I'm Professor Tony Coulson from Cal State San Bernardino. I am the executive director of the Cybersecurity Center, whose entire purpose is workforce development, especially attracting a job base to the Inland Empire region. But my other hat that I wear is I lead the Centers of Academic Excellence in a community of schools, which is 407 colleges and universities across the nation that all have the NSA Centers of Academic Excellence designation. And so under that, we work on everything from early childhood to K through 12 to community college work, as well as advanced research and cyber offense and defense, trying to basically help solve the national workforce crisis, which is what's about 760,000 or more, depends on whose number you use. But it's a huge problem, and that's what we do on a daily basis in San Bernardino.
Thank you. And so we have quite a panelist group here, and we're going to move into our first questions to kick this off. And our first question is actually from Assemblyman Carlos Villapudua. And I want to thank the Assembly member and his staff who are with us in the audience today. And the question is, what are the skills that new workers need when entering these professions? So we can start it off with, how about Ms. Woods? Want to start us off there?
Sure, great question. From working with our advisory partners throughout the state and in the Inland Empire, they're definitely looking for not only the technical skills, but those 21st century critical thinking, problem solving skills. With COVID and the numerous, the introduction of so many diverse technologies, students and people in general have seemed to lost some of these critical skills that are in high demand. And because these skills are needed throughout the workforce, and because technology will be in every industry sector, because it's critical. And that's what we're hearing, is that we really have to work in partnership. The companies and the workforce themselves say that we can train them in the technical and guide them to what specifically we need as they get the education in cybersecurity, but that all of us, K through 12, and then on to the university and beyond, must focus on their critical thinking, their problem solving, their reasoning, their team building, partnerships, collaborations with across networks. That's critically important.
Thank you. And how about Professor Geissler?
Yeah, echoing Donna's comments, I think along with the critical thinking, we need to teach the ethics pieces that go along with that, because that's so important, especially in an environment where our industry partners need to be able to trust their employees to safeguard privacy of fellow employees, as well as organizational assets such as intellectual property, for example. So that's huge, and we need to make sure that as we go through the educational pipelines, which of course don't end right when students get their degrees. So many students come back to the community colleges, that we continue to provide them with opportunities to upskill throughout their career.
Kayvan, your take on what the needs are.
So a lot of what my colleagues have said, I would just foot stomp that. One of the things that, as we've talked to industry partners that recruit from our student body, the new normal of how folks are working in the post-COVID environment. And Donna, you kind of mentioned this. It's reestablishing those the muscle memory, bringing it back, and teaching them and students how to think about communicating, team building, how to work towards a project in an end state. Those are critical things that has been lost a little bit, but I think that in a lot of different disciplines and a lot of different environments, the educational opportunities provided by institutions around the state are trying to mimic what's happening in the private industry, but at the same time, reteach those skills that may have been lost a little bit. I'd also just kind of foot stomp, we get the same kind of information from our partners in industry that oftentimes tell us that the trainings are ubiquitous, the trainings that they need are the ubiquitous ones, the things that they need around the technology specific, they are happy to provide as they bring folks into what respective roles that they have. So I do think that's an interesting component that we oftentimes hear from folks.
And last, Professor Coulson, what kind of skills do you?
Well, the hardest thing here as an academic on my academic side is trying to figure out the jobs that students are going to need 5 years from now. I have to teach them for the jobs that are going to exist in the future. And that's a skill that everybody who's employed in the technology industry has to understand, that the skills you learned 5 years ago aren't necessarily the skills that are needed today. So there's a kind of an innate curiosity that we have to identify in people that want to work in the technology sector, and then say, how do we push that forward? How do we identify the one that's curious and say, you're going to reinvent yourself, by the way, every few years? Academia, we're doing it all the time. And then, of course, we talk to industry. And it's interesting being an academic. Sometimes we surprise industry by actually listening to them, as opposed to saying, we're the expert, we know what you need. No, we have to ask the right question of what industry needs. Industry needs not only for today, but they need something down the road. And those are the important questions to ask. And that, I think that's one of the biggest challenges we have in any technology sector.
Well, on that leads into the Assembly members' part 2 of the question, which was, how can educational institutions work with the industry to ensure that their programming aligns with those needs? Because as you mentioned, it's a constant cycle. If you're going to be out of date 5 years from now, how do we maintain that currency in our educational programs? And that's back to you, Professor Coulson, and then we'll
Okay.
go back around to everybody else.
All right, how long do I have? So here's an interesting thing: is industry is often constrained by supply and demand, and so what we see is I was talking to somebody, a very large aerospace company, and I said, here's the way we should do this. Maybe we should consider long-term pipelines, things like apprenticeship programs where you're identifying the talent early, we nurture them through. There's a whole bunch of benefits to that. And the person looked at me and he says, you know what? Here's how we hire people. We find our nearest competitor, we get the in-and-out truck, we park it out front of their facility, and then their people come out, eat the burgers, and we say, come work for us. And then 2 years later, they do the same thing to us, and we just pay them more. And I said, how short-sighted is that? And they said, we need a lot of here and now. And so we get a bit of a mixed message here. But what's encouraging is in this period of time where we moved from COVID and remote work and so on, employers are being a lot more flexible and creative in what they need. And so I think as academic institutions, especially, we get a lot of flack for being uninnovative, right? Like that we sit on our laurels and so on. But I'm here to say, especially with the group of panelists that we have here now, no, these are the true innovators, and we're working with industry. We're listening to industry, and we're also trying to break the mold of the kind of transactional employment and say, look, a long-term investment is really the best way to go here.
And on that, you talked about that being innovative. How do we actually foster that? And I'm going to put this to Ms. Woods. How do we get that, fostering that at the very beginning of their educational cycle?
That's a great question. And to tie in with that, it's North Dakota was just the very first state in the nation now to put into law cybersecurity standards from kindergarten through high school, as well as their computer science. So we can easily, we've been doing that throughout California through the NICE framework, looking at the TSAs, which is the technical skills and abilities, and the KSAs, the knowledge, skills, and abilities, for the national standards and industries, to engage students at a younger age and to look at each of those standards at each level so that we do have a very coherent pathway that goes from K through 12 on to middle college and then on to the universities and into the careers. And throughout that entire pathway with those industry partnerships, from what Dr. Coulson was just saying, is that we have to not only have them in the conversation and actually listen to them, but then form real action plans. It's important that we follow up from the advisories and we have a real action plan to what we're doing with those industry partners. So as the technology changes and as the standards are even updated as fast as that technology changes, that we still work collaboratively and cohesively.
And on that, when you talk about these action plans, what are the trade-offs of different programs, certificate, 2-year, 4-year, graduate degrees, apprenticeships, and preparing students to enter the field? And how do we connect these programs and get students from one level to another? Professor Geissler, if you want to, I know that you've been involved in a lot of those areas, so you want to chime in and talk about those?
Yeah, that's something that we're getting better at. We're not terribly good at, because at the post-secondary level, we have, as Professor Coulson also alluded to earlier, and not necessarily always proven the greatest flexibility. And with the increasing comfort and knowledge of technology and cyber skills of our younger generations, we've really hesitated to move some of the courses that used to be freshman college courses into the K-12 arena, potentially as low as freshman and sophomore levels in high school, so that we can, in fact, earlier start building these pipelines that we are slowly but surely in the state putting together at a speed that could be faster, no doubt about it, but where we truly take some of the skills that students who come from K-12, then we take them in at the correct level once they hit college. And of course, then there's also that same transition challenge between our 2-year colleges and our 4-year colleges on questions on what's lower division, what's upper division, right? And some of the barriers that we have in place for students on which we really need to, in many ways, be a bit more flexible to get those students to complete and to get them into the workforce.
And on that, when you have all these students who are coming in who are more flexible, more knowledgeable, some of the more cutting edge technologies that are out there, we have a question from Martha Castaneda from the Council of State Governments West. How might AI affect the number of professionals hired when the IT labor market needs? How about Kayvan, you want to try tackling that?
I might actually refer to one of my colleagues here because we might know a little bit more on the AI front, but I would share that on the, the evergreen challenge is always going to be kind of the themes that's coming up with what Professor Coulson and Professor Geissler has said and Ms. Woods have said, right? As kind of the trajectory of things are changing, what's being taught has to change. We have to kind of take that into account in terms of what we are training our students and preparing them to learn about. So I won't use the AI example since I'm just a little bit out of my scope, but I will say, for example, what we've been doing as we've kind of executed, for example, a game that we do every year for middle school and high schoolers that's built by our college students. Well, every year that competition has moved and changed and morphed to adapt to the technology that is at the cutting edge of things that are talked about in an unclassified environment. So for example, what started out years ago as a basic forensics game of who hacked my password has now shifted to a game about 5G being hacked, a 5G network being hacked, right? The conversation has shifted, and because it's shifted, we've had to rely more on partners and industry to help guide us, to help our students understand the different concepts. And then when they internalize those concepts to teach the next generation, and through in our case, through a gaming model. So I would say it's, the lesson learned there is actually probably the same with AI. But again, I defer to my colleagues who might have a little bit more on that space.
Okay, would one of the other panelists like to jump in to talk more about AI?
Sure.
Okay. Professor Coulson, I'm sure all of you would like to.
Donna, do you want to go first?
No, go ahead, Dr. Coulson.
Okay, so look, cyber and other things, target-rich environment. And so you look at AI and you say, oh, well, that's the shiny object that we're all paying attention to now because, Chat GPT brought it into your homes or Bing or whatever is going, OpenAI. The reality is that AI was created to automate things, and we've been automating humans out of jobs for a long time. In this case, we're going to need AI that is smarter than the other person's AI. And we're going to be getting into quantum. And this is what I was talking about at the beginning is, look, we have to come up with what are the jobs 4 years from now. And that means listening. It means being dynamic. It means that my university needs to be talking to the community college and needs to be talking to the high school and meeting and having meaningful, not only conversations, but action behind it. And so we're seeing that happen, especially where we are in the Inland Empire. I have the pleasure of working with Donna's group over there. And we have the pleasure of working with our community college partners. And so when something like AI comes up, it starts and it's like, oh, only the doctoral level universities can touch that. It's so sophisticated. And now we're seeing the community colleges and the high schools are playing in the AI space because it's becoming more of a matter of fact of life. And then we say, okay, so what's the next step? What's the next thing that's coming? Donna?
Thank you, Dr. Coulson. I agree, right on. Yep. AI is, again, like you said, that larger in the room. And when the Chat GPT came out, it means we're going to have to prepare students, right, for that workforce. It's not so much as replacing jobs, it's the data analytics, it's understanding AI, it's the work, it's changing our units and our curriculum and keeping fresh with the technology. And as many of the big companies have warned, including Elon Musk today, wait, slow down a little bit on the AI because you keep creating technology that you have not prepared a workforce to deal with, that you have not prepared a society or an industry to deal with, or the outcomes and the nefarious intent. And that's why we're building the workforce. So if we think 760,000 is a large workforce and over 86,000 in California spots that we're trying to fill, AI is only going to increase that dramatically. So yes, we have to be prepared. Yes, we're going to have to keep evolving our curriculum with that technology. It's not a job replacement, it's additional jobs that will be created.
And on that, as Professor Coulson pointed out, that automation has in fact put a lot of people out of work. At the same time, we're looking at the next generation of workforce. What can we do to provide opportunities for mid-career professionals looking to enter or re-enter the workforce in the cybersecurity arena and acquire those skills? How do we get that generation that's already out there that's coming back? Professor Geissler?
I'll take that softball for the community colleges because we do a lot of that.
Right.
And you know what we need to do and are doing to a great extent. And I think the community colleges did have a leading role in getting cybersecurity out there in the first place in our state. Not so much where everybody needs it. We're certainly good at providing some of the more entry-level basic skills. But as we were doing that, the community colleges as a whole have really also become great mid-career upskilling environments where we offer certificates of anywhere from typically 12 to 25, 26 units, where then folks who are in the field can come back and get some of the more current skill sets that they may not have had coming in. Our average age of student is certainly in the IT cybersecurity area is somewhere around 30. So we do have many of the 18-year-olds coming out of high school, no doubt, but we've got quite a few folks who come back for precisely those skills. And but when they come to us, they come back, oftentimes they then look for more, right? So can I maybe get another bachelor's with this, or or let's say they started without one. And that's why that continued collaboration with our four-year partners is so important. But we're really good at bringing them in, taking them in, and we need to get better at sending them then to the right place and having the right, sorry to geek out, sockets to plug them into.
And Professor Coulson, you had your hand up earlier. You wanted to.
So first of all, you're absolutely right about the community colleges, but I also say hats off to the people that came up with the California Master Education Plan so many years ago. To have that mid-tiers, the CSU, the UCs, and the community colleges, you are providing opportunity for everyone. And now here we are in this crisis of workforce. And we need all hands on deck. Let's just face it. It's not just the 18-year-olds. We need everybody. We need that person that is trying to reskill. We need veterans. We need people from the area, even homeschoolers. We just launched a homeschooling program to bring in different types of people because we need everybody. But name another state that's as well prepared to retrain workers than California. I mean, the center that Donna has, the work that's being done at our community college partners that we worked with, and then to come up with, say, instant degree programs, if you will. I have 7 different degrees, and I call them instant degrees because what they were is we looked and we said, what is the community college over there doing, and how can I make a bachelor's degree attainable, even if it wasn't in a traditional computer science type of discipline? There's a lot of new and innovative thinking going on here, a lot. And for reskilling, especially people that need new opportunities or people who have never thought of it, I don't think there's a better time than now. And the mechanisms that have existed both formally and informally, and that California's never been better prepared. But the main thing is, how do we now get people motivated and get them into this space and get the employers lined up? At least that's my opinion on it.
And on that, what kinds of incentives can be created to get new cyber trained folks to take the roles in, say, government? You want to take a crack at that?
I'll take a crack at that and kind of just feature a little bit about how we're thinking about it. One of the big roles that we've been doing, I joke about it, I call it my little virtuous cycle, right? We bring students through a game to learn about Cal Poly, then they come to Cal Poly, then they become computer science majors, and then we introduce them to building a game. But more importantly, it's introducing them to concepts, right? How does this fit within a greater context of public service? So, at Cal Poly, at the Cybersecurity Institute, we've had opportunities, for example, to train a lot of law enforcement, have law enforcement day. So what does law enforcement, how does that intersect with cyber? And, our students are being introduced to that concept on the daily. How about what's happening at, say, for example, here in the state in Vandenberg? What's happening at the Space Force, and how does it intersect? So it's a little bit of a storytelling component for us, right? To demonstrate and bring different leaders from across the state to introduce them to the different themes and opportunities that are open to them, and show them how cybersecurity can go into the public sector.
And
It would occur, the way to incentivize it even more is when you have veterans and you have a center or facilities that can do it like ours and others, is that you partner with your city halls, you partner with your assembly and your legislators in your community, your chamber of commerce, that you're reteaching, retraining, and offer incentives then with those industries to give them the externships, the internships, the paid apprenticeships. So as they're transferring their learning into actual work base, and then we teach it to our students too. We want you to pay it forward. We want you have to provide community service hours while in high school, 40 over a season of the time you're in the pathway, and that you must pay it forward. So even our high school students are facilitating training to adults, to small businesses, to vets. That's what we open up our center for. But we want our students to do the training to initiate those partnerships. And then for those partners and the people that go through the training to be part of the launch apprenticeship, to be part of the apprenticeships that are working with industry, and be part of the apprenticeships that our community and our city offers. That's critical. And that's why the collaboration between all these entities, those are how you would incentivize. And when we're all working together, as Dr. Coulson said earlier, when you're really working together and you have that actionable plan, then these incentives become realities. And then we see our workforce initiatives really going into strong effect.
Thank you. And when you talk about a lot of these partnerships and a lot of these models, what are some successful models of cyber workforce development initiatives at both the federal or the state level that California can really learn lessons from? Or are there things that California is doing that we can teach the lessons for? So, Professor Coulson.
It's my favorite subject. I'm sorry, I'm really passionate about this. But so we lead the national program. So for Centers of Academic Excellence, we share everything that we do, not only at San Bernardino, but also in the Centers of Academic Excellence community. Donna's part of this, and I believe our other panelists are part of this. And I'm actually in Palm Desert right now, and we have the National Security Agency here. And what are we talking about? We're talking about national cyber workforce, and we're saying, how do we create programs? And so we're funding, what if an apprenticeship was able to start in high school for career tech ed and make it through the community college and then make it to the bachelor's level? So we started the first in state with Moreno Valley College, et cetera, an apprenticeship program, and where they can get their bachelor's degree. And we said, okay, but that's not far enough. What about Space Force? Well, we work with Space Force. We created a national scholarship program for people that want to enter into Space Force that pays their tuition, gives them a stipend, but with an incentive, with a job at the end. And then we said, well, that's not enough. So we started working with other entities and started going, what about city government? What about state government? What about how can we solve this problem? Let's get as many ideas on the floor as possible. But here's the thing. It's not just ideas, it's actions that are counting. And if you look at the Inland Empire in particular, I'm going to tout the Inland Empire. We've been freely giving stuff out to the Inland Empire. Donna's been freely giving, and now it's being adopted statewide. This is really the innovation center for a lot of activities. But also, what about taking the national models with the feds? And so that's what our role has been, and we're trying to bring it back. And there's another center that we work with community colleges called the National Cybersecurity Training and Education Center that's headed out of Whatcom, but is funded through the National Science Foundation. We helped start getting the community colleges on board and putting ideas to action. So there's a lot of stuff going on that is too much for this call, but you've got the right panelists, you've got the right brain trust here within the state. It's really about bringing the conversations up to the levels of people that can help us attack this more strategically, in my view.
Would anybody else like to chime in on the models and what California can teach the rest of the country or the rest of the world? Okay, well, we move on. How can universities play a meaningful role in continuing education for active professionals in cybersecurity? I know that our office actually works with Cal Poly's Institute to further our own training. So you want to take that one, Kayvan?
Absolutely. So, one of the most fruitful things that we've been doing at Cal Poly is we have students that are going through kind of the applied computing route. There are students that are taking courses in business. And then at the CCI, we provide them training that are certificate based. So they come to the CCI, they get introduced to, dependent on their aptitude and where they are, cybersecurity, the basics, cybersecurity 101, all the way up to cloud computing, network analysis, and so forth. And it's been fruitful partnering with entities across the state and industry to be able to provide those trainings. And so it's been fantastic because that for us has been kind of the workforce engine. They are not only kind of taught the critical thinking skills and abilities, but at the same time, they provide the proper certification and the ubiquitous skills that they can take to their first days in their careers.
And I think that's key because it's in computing we have the different disciplines to which Professor Coulson alluded to earlier, such as computer science, but there's information systems, there's information technology, there's specific cyber security programs these days, right? But then there's also the connection with all these other programs, because cybersecurity, since technology is everywhere, has to be interdisciplinary to a great extent. And so the work that is being done at Cal Poly for that reason is invaluable, to have folks who come out with various degrees at baccalaureate, master's levels, what have you, have that sensitivity and at the level where they need it, that skill to be able to do the things that they're doing, as many of us would consider outside of computing, but still with technology in a secure manner. And that's huge to protecting the infrastructure for our state and frankly, for our country as well.
Well, that's actually a interesting point, and I want to follow up with that. How do we connect not only the cyber education that's going on with the other fields that aren't typically associated with cybersecurity, such as agriculture, trucking, plumbing, and carpentry, all these other disciplines, and we're becoming more and more of an information technology-driven society. So how do we connect with those groups to make sure that those outside non-traditional groups are getting the cybersecurity education that they need? And Professor Coulson, again.
So we're actually going to be running through the Insight Center a national conference where we're bringing in advanced technology education centers in manufacturing, supply chain, automotive, and cyber. And we're trying to see where the threads all connect so that we can disseminate that through the state. I'm a huge believer in the engine that is the community colleges that are great for especially in the certificate programs, are so well developed, but bringing the interdisciplinary nature of this field and saying it doesn't have to be the tech companies that are doing it. But if I am doing it, if I'm doing manufacturing, how does that apply? If I'm a water district that only has 4 employees, and most water districts in the state are very small, how do I get them some training to understand how the industrial controls work? And so we've been very successful in working with community college partners, but also places like what Donna is doing to say, all right, how do we get that technology in? And I think that How do I get that integrated into their curriculum and come up with new pieces? We just started another interdisciplinary degree in criminal justice with a bachelor's in criminal justice with cybersecurity and other disciplines. Again, target-rich environment, lots of good ideas, lots of good resources to rely on in the state. It really comes down to kind of coordinating some of this and also amplifying it.
And I think one other place where you can truly broaden these skills is by starting early. Start with our K-12 colleagues, because we know that the grand majority of folks are going to be going at least through 12th grade. That's where they need to pick up some of those elementary, that cyber hygiene that we talk about at times. That needs to, at this point in time, be almost inbred, right? Just like, if you're writing a program in computer science, if you're not writing it securely, it's going to have a whole lot less utility. If you're not checking the database that you're developing from different, manufacturing environments, if you're not ensuring that can run securely and is properly protected, it's going to be at best less valuable and at worst a greater risk of exposure for your organization. So it really needs to be, we need to handle that sensitivity early so that we don't have to worry about it ex post facto.
Can I jump in on
Kayvan, I can see
on this theme because I think it's actually incredibly important to kind of start early, as Professor Geissler has mentioned, because of the I referenced it earlier, the role of storytelling, right? What we had a lot of fun doing and have seen so much success with interest of students. I kind of joked about that virtuous cycle, but we ran competitions or CTFs, capture the flag. They're all cyber oriented, but the substantive themes ranged from a water treatment plant, a pacemaker getting hacked, a satellite. So we were providing young students early exposure to understanding that there is a depth to cybersecurity that's a lot more. And I think that activities like that really do help kind of drive home the message of this is important, and it crosses a whole lot of different fields, a lot of fields that might be of interest to you for multiple reasons, the cyber and space or cyber and health. So just wanted to kind of add to that point.
And I'm going to let Donna have the last word on this question, but I also want to bridge that into the next question that will be a lot in her realm. Some of these non-traditional students, when we're reaching out to organizations that are in carpentry or plumbing, some of them may not have any exposure to technology or very limited prior to it. They may not go to work with a laptop in their bag. But what do we do in today's world if a student or somebody doesn't have access to a laptop or a computer for the class? How far behind are they falling in their education, especially when they start at K-12 and you don't have anything? And how can we address this digital divide?
Right, it's a great question, John, and one that there's been numerous case studies done on. Digital equity is critically important, and having the one-to-one K through 12, and many school districts have been able to do that. But what we also found is that even if you give them a Chromebook or a laptop to work with, they have to have internet access. So our state has been very forward thinking and preparing that and working with cities. We had to be very innovative in our district in providing hotspots throughout the city at different parks through school buses and bringing the students the connectivity to be able to use that technology. So digital equitability is very important, but key to that, what people don't understand is they think students are naturally digital natives. They are not. We need statewide a campaign on cyber awareness, cyber security, what cyber careers are all about, a national marketing campaign, but a statewide campaign that you're just like Smokey the Bear, right? And different campaigns that you run, giving people, first of all, an awareness, then giving them the technology. Yes, we need to have standards K through 12 all the way through where you're introducing at each grade level and teaching that no matter what career field they're going to be going into, and through that campaign and marketing showing how cyber and technology and digital equitability is in every industry sector and why understanding is key awareness. So those are components. And then a big component that we're running into here is that even though you may give the students both the technology and the access and then the training, you have to train their parents. We offer Parenting University. There is a big gap and an educational gap and a learning technology gap between our students we have now in K-12 and their parents. So, and a lot of that was exposed during COVID, right? Seeing we're sending all this technology home to them, we're training teachers and giving them professional development, but we left out the parents. So that's key. And that's what we started focusing on as we returned, is making sure we're giving the parents training alongside their students. And we invite them into every training and workshop we do for our teachers, as well as for our students. We think it's critical.
And when we talk about that digital divide and parent education, is there a place for those parents to go besides the K-12 area once their kids are older? I mean, I refer to my kid as a screenager. She's, been raised on that. It's odd that she can't. Oh, you have to actually used to go to a library to look things up. Now, poof, it's in the palm of your hand. Do you find that more and more of those parents are drifting more towards formalized education in, say, the community college arena? Or are they going to alternate routes, or are they just going without? Professor Geissler.
We do have a fair number of those parents coming back to us, and at Cosumnes River College specifically, where I teach, we have both our 3-unit introduction to cybersecurity, which is where majors primarily take off from there, but we also have that 1-unit. What is cybersecurity? What are some of the practical things that people need to know to do? So I do believe the community colleges are a really good place for people to come at the wonderfully low unit rates, and typically very flexible schedules that we tend to have for folks, for sure.
And with that flexibility, how do you keep your coursework current with the rapidly shifting threats and capability environment and technologies? What do you do to keep on top of that?
Can I just
Yes,
jump
please.
in and mention, to your earlier question, and I'll answer this question as well. One of the we've been grappling with this as well. We get this kind of demand from parents all the time that are signing their kids up for our competition, realizing that their children have outpaced them in terms of the security conversation. And so we've been toying with creating a Cybersecurity 101 certificate training that is for the parents. And to be honest with you, I actually have had a lot of success leaning on industry to help me to build that. And so it's been fun to kind of work with them, to find ways to see what avenues are there that they could help kind of build this with us in partnership, and for us to put it on kind of our resource page for our audiences. So I just wanted to kind of add that it's a layer that has been interesting in the last year for us, because we get this demand signal frequently of parents that are requesting more information.
So you have a lot of opportunities to keep up your curriculum. What are some of the barriers to keeping up with that curriculum?
The barriers, well, I mean, it's the classic, right? The benefit is the training that they help us create. The barriers is the communication to get it out, right? So here I have a very small window of who can use this, because they are already a natural audience that know about it, because they have a son or daughter that's trying to sign up for a competition and they want to be in the know, or it's a coach. That we get a lot of those as well, teachers that are not necessarily in the tech field, but are a science teacher, for example, that want to foster students. What we don't get access to is the breadth of putting it out there. It's a resource. We want people to use it. And that's been the bigger challenge. And that's what we've been trying to work on. But it's something that we started out 3-4 years ago. We called it our digital literacy training. And since then, it's grown with partnerships with industry to build it out. no problem getting it built. The challenge is getting it out to the right audiences.
Professor Coulson, yes.
So we embarked a couple of years ago on camps. First of all, camp experiences, free camps, and now there's thousands of kids going through national camps. We're doing Hack the Hospital now. This is pretty exciting. But also as far as literacy goes, we created a curriculum just recently, and it's been deployed to the nation. We're just actually talking about it in the next room. It's called Ring. And it's a high school curriculum, and it includes parent components. And we've deployed it and tested it, and it's been deployed now to 10,000. And we're anticipating about 80,000 people are going to pick it up. And this is an interesting approach because it's not only that there's curriculum that a faculty member can adapt, but it has a parental component. But more so to me is that we're involving things like the community colleges so that they can count for dual credit, right? Part of the incentive to me of getting parents interested and kids interested is to say that the work isn't just to get them that high school diploma or to achieve that one level, but where's the reusable object stickiness, if you will? Where we say, hey, you earned it here, you learned it here, but now you can take it to the community college and you already have college credit. And so when we thought this through and we said, all right, if we're going to try and change the world or boil the ocean in the way that we're approaching cyber from my vantage point, how can we get that? But then again, rely on the word of community colleges is community, right? Rely on the communities and empower them and say, hey, hook up with your high schools, hook up with what Donna's doing in Moreno Valley College and Riverside City College or other colleges. See what you can do and then try and build that, again, pipeline. So we're seeing innovation everywhere. There's sectors we could talk about, Hack the Hospital, Hack the Building, and all of the competitions. And we run lots of competitions. There's a lot of activities, but the key in my mind is not only getting the parents there, but also giving incentive for encouragement of this behavior. And that is that pathway that says this will also count somewhere else and gets them a leg up to accelerate the production of the workforce as well.
And on this, okay, Professor Geissler?
Yeah, I'll take that to one other level that I think we do need to talk about, and that's the professional development piece also for the educators, for the people who are going to be teaching this. We have a huge problem hiring faculty at certainly, I know the post-secondary level, I'm not quite sure, our K through 12 colleagues who can teach some of these topics. And it's also very difficult for the folks who are in the positions already teaching to maintain that skill level because we're teaching, right? So that's a big challenge. And of course, as we need more educators, we need to make sure that there are opportunities provided at our universities for the faculty to, in fact, get the skills and then hopefully be somehow incentivized to stay in education because we're figuring out that we're competing in trying to hire those faculty with industry and we can't compete with those dollars that are being paid there. So that's something that we need to continue to work on in California for sure as well.
Okay. Well, we are reaching the end of our time, so I want to give each one of our panelists 1 minute to give some final thoughts and some wrap-ups of what are the opportunities that you're most excited about in relation to the training California's future cybersecurity workforce. So we'll go back through reverse order. Professor Coulson.
The big thing on my mind right now is that COVID was a blessing and a tragedy at the same time. The blessing was that it moved us to a point where we could say all those things we talked about doing for remote work, remote learning, remote this, suddenly we could overcome those barriers in a matter of weeks. And that increased opportunity. So for one of the things that I like about that is now I have new opportunities that are not geographic in nature, that people say there's no industry out in the Inland Empire. There's no industry in the Central Valley, so I can't work there. I have to move away. No, not anymore. This is changing. And so we've come up with a comprehensive plan within our region that we're spreading out throughout the state, which is this idea of apprenticeship models, identifying talent in the career tech ed, moving them through community college and through university degrees, but at the same time, integrating and understanding that the educational institutions are also a critical resource for providing things like broadband, a place you can work, a place that has housing, right? You think about colleges and universities, some of them have housing adjacent and so on. It solves a kind of a critical issue, is leveraging education in a new and innovative way rather than just we teach our classes and we go home, but that we have a genuine partnership in the interest of what it needs to be the state, but also in the national security interests of all of us in building a comprehensive workforce. And the panel that you have here has some of the greatest out-of-the-box thinkers. Donna Woods, I'm like her biggest fan. Out-of-the-box thinkers that are saying, hey, look, we're not just thinking about, we're taking an opportunity and we're moving forward with it.
Thank you. Kayvan.
I want to match Professor Coulson's enthusiasm, and just to say that I think because the dialogue has shifted, I'm thrilled to see kind of in a kind of a microcosm on our campus the demand signals of how much our student body is interested in cyber. Computer science, electrical engineering, software engineering, computer engineering are our most popular majors at our university. Cybersecurity in our computer science department is our most impacted minor. Add to the benefit that there's interest throughout the university from all different disciplines around cyber. We put an open posting for a opportunity for policy role at our institute, and we'll have 20 students applying that want to get into the Cybersecurity Institute. All of that is to say that if I'm enthusiastic, I'm enthusiastic seeing from our student body kind of that signal. And then on top of it, watching how partners both in industry, both at the state level and at the federal level, that there is a willingness to kind of partner and work towards fostering that energy towards the needs that we have as a state. So I'll just share that that's really for me the exciting part at this point.
Okay. And Professor Geissler.
Yeah, so along the lines of opportunity, especially with COVID, even though community colleges have that regional mission, I think we need to understand that we can no longer stick with that. I think we need to start thinking super regionally, because our students continue to be flexible, and these days it doesn't matter so much from where someone is learning, right? To coordinate things across the state, I think we need to adopt some of the model curricula that are out there, and we need to embrace those all the way from K-12 to our four-year university partners, so that we can put out a product at the end, that skill set that our graduates will have, that industry can understand, that industry can easily consume. We have too many instances of colleges who are serving the same MSA, who are offering different degrees that at the end of the day are really confusing our industry partners. So I think we have an opportunity to work together, and cyber is certainly one of those as we're building the details across the different disciplines. And also one last thing, cyber doesn't mean cyber, and it shouldn't mean cyber. There are so many different facets of cybersecurity and so many different skill sets that are going to be required. That's where our industry partners and our four-year partners need to be flexible, just like the community colleges need to be, to teach the appropriate skills within the different majors at the appropriate levels.
Thank you. And Donna Woods, you get our last words of wisdom and this.
Well, if it wasn't for all these gentlemen here, we would not have the program we have. And I say that very humbly. And I'm honored to serve in our school district because we've had visionary leaders in partnerships with our strong workforce program, our Inland Empire Regional Digital Consortium, just an incredible group of people, you know, that both Dr. Geissler and Dr. Coulson looked at our curriculum as we were originally writing it, you know, 7 years ago and helped us. So what am I excited about? I want to see, and I'm excited with where our state is going as far as that we're breaking down the silos. That was critical first, is that we're working more together. We're collaborating more, we're doing more. I do want to see the standards go all the way to kindergarten. I think that's critical. We were just talking about that a few years ago to making sure dual enrollment beyond articulation was brought to the high schools. We were able to achieve that together. And these students and their parents are excited. They are like, oh my goodness, they're leaving high school with 16 college units, both articulated and dual enrollment. That's getting them almost all the way through the certifications, right? They're doing the certifications in the summer. This came about from just the discussions and then making it action and making it happen. So I'm excited about going to the next level of making sure those standards are all the way through, right? And then making sure we're doing that forward momentum. You can look at cyberseek.org, cyberstates.org, look at the labor market data. We are seeing this need. We're seeing that, and California has led the way. So now we need to take that next step. We need to make sure we're doing the national standards across our school. We're needing to make sure that it is part of the general education at every community college and every university, that cybersecurity or the objectives and standards within cybersecurity must be part of their curriculum and their disciplines, no matter what the major. It's critical. That's the next point we have to go to make sure that industry partnerships, that they're cohesive and that the students are leaving prepared, no matter what level, whether it's graduating immediately from high school and having that preparation, going on to the community college or the university. It's going to be throughout their educational development and their articulation through those academic pathways that they'll see it. And I think that's where we need to go to next as a state. And then we'll continue being the leaders nationally.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And we have come to the end of our time. I would like to thank the panelists for a really great conversation. And now I'm going to be handing it back to Brie to close this out.
Thank you, John, and a big thank you to our panelists and everyone who joined us in the audience today. If you would like to watch this briefing again or have a colleague who is interested but couldn't make this time, the recording will be posted on our website, along with the one-pager and contact information for the experts that you heard from today. Thank you. Have a nice day.